So this is actually a bit of a weird video because this video we're going to be discussing about how a hurricane could have impacted New York City in the most positive way possible. And I'm doing this on the 23rd anniversary of 9/11 because this is a 9/11 related video. But there was a hurricane known as Hurricane Erin that steered away from New York City on September 11th. And I think that if the hurricane had hit New York City, it would have been the best thing to happen in the city's history because it would have kept the hijackers away if the storm was bad enough. Now, I want to make something very clear. Storms can cause devastating destruction and almost never a good thing. But this, I think, is the one exception in hindsight of what happened, of course. Because 9/11 happened on one of the most beautiful weather days you could ask for in September. The day before was hot and humid and over an inch of rain fell in evening thunderstorms. But this led to September 11th being just stunning weather. The low temperature was 63 degrees. The high temperature was 81 degrees. Humidity dropped as low as 16%, meaning there was no humidity near to speak of. It was as picturesque fall weather as you could ask for. It actually felt a lot like spring in a lot of ways. And this provided the deep blue skies that 9/11 has been so infamous for. The skies right now look kind of deep blue, but there are some clouds over there. And the weather today, while nice, is not as nice as it was then. So, obviously on a clear day, there's going to be airplanes flying. On days that do not have such nice weather, there are usually rampant flight delays. Now, it hasn't rained in New York City seriously in a while, but like a notable example of this was when flash floods tore through the tri-state area on August 18th. Hundreds of flights were delayed and canceled. And this story happens a lot. We see it happen where whenever there's a big storm, especially a hurricane, we see tons of flight impacts. Now, obviously 9/11 was an aviation incident. But you look at it, a plane's not flying through a hurricane. And looking at where they were all flights that took off in the northeastern United States. So if Erin hits in like the perfect area, similar to where, Gloria made landfall, those flights probably aren't taking off. And if they are, I don't know if the hijackers are going to be able to hijack it into the areas they want it to. I mean, yeah, I know their goal is to cause death and destruction, but they might literally hit it into the wrong target if the weather's bad. Obviously, the weather was, picture perfect. If there are weather obstructions, though, those flights might not be happening. The attacks as a whole might not have been able to happen. And with that, then you have the opportunity to scan the individuals and possibly arrest them. Look, hurricanes are inherently a bad thing. And storm that's going to cause rampant flight delays to this extent is probably going to cause a few fatalities in of itself. However, the deadliest hurricane in the history of the state of New York was the Long Island Express that killed 60 people. Sandy was responsible for 53 deaths. And you look at the Northeast area, and you will say that one of those two storms, depending on the area affected, was the most devastating in the history of the area. And while those deaths are certainly numerous, they pale in comparison to the 3,000 lives lost on 9/11. And Hurricane Erin, I don't think would have been as bad as Sandy either. It probably would have caused, some deaths, but it wouldn't have been like this kind of storm that causes, catastrophic impacts the same way Sandy did, because Sandy, while it was a Category 1 storm, hit perpendicular to the coast at high tide on a new moon. That wouldn't have happened here. But instead, the weather was beautiful, and that led to disaster.